Rear Window, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, and screenplay written by John Michael Hayes, released in 1954, based on the short story written by Cornell Woolrich titled It Had to Be Murder. The film was shot entirely on one confined set built at Paramount Studios, one of the largest indoor sets constructed in Hollywood at the time, comprising of 31 apartments, many of them fully furnished with working plumbing and utilities, and measuring almost 100 feet wide, 185 feet long, and 40 feet high. This was not Hitchcock's first movie shot in one location, but it might be his most memorable, being the purest expression of a cinematic idea. We are greeted with a long pan through the courtyard that will become our view for the next 2 hours, briefly getting to know the characters in play. We have the single songwriter trying to write his masterpiece, the couple sleeping outside due to the scorching heat with the curious dog whose interest becomes his doom, the lovely Miss Torso with the scores of men all vying for her attention, Miss Hearing Aid working on her hobbies of showing things no one wants to see, the newlyweds who can't keep their hands off each other, Miss Lonely Hearts who is fighting sorrow and pain with alcohol and pills, and losing. But we also get our main characters, L.B. Jeffries, who goes by Jeff and is currently out of commission as a photographer due to an injury on the job, Stella, who is a shrewd and intuitive nurse, the stunning Lisa, who is far too perfect to shackle herself to a life Jeffries can offer, Doyle, the detective who gets more than he bargained for, and the Thorwalds, whom we will get to in a second. Hitchcock is a master of suspense, an incredible director, and he shows off his prowess in this thriller. In the first 12 minutes, we are treated to everything we will need for the rest of the movie. We know Jeffries is stuck at home for another week due to his injury. He's been keeping a watchful eye on his neighbors. We see his camera and appropriate gear, and we see the conflict across the courtyard that soon becomes deadly. Some of these details may not even fully register in our conscious minds, but it's all there for us to assimilate, process, and put to use to become detectives ourselves along with our protagonists. He gives us more than his own characters are aware of to build the suspense and have us on the edge of our seats. After having a wonderfully perfect dinner with Lisa, who is madly in love with him, Jeffries expresses his concerns with marriage and commitment as he portrays himself as being kind for sparing her a life of difficulty and despair, traveling the world in miserable conditions despite being a woman with a town in the palm of her hands. Lisa mournfully leaves, but shortly after she does, murder ensues in shadows, piquing the interest and concern of Jeff as he tries to stay awake to see what has just taken place in his courtyard, his eyes darting across the windows to see which one holds the key to unraveling this mystery. All of a sudden, he witnesses Thorwald leave his apartment in the middle of a storm at 5 till 2 a.m. with a large suitcase. Obviously, this is concerning behavior after hearing a scream, a glass shatter, and a cry of, "Don't!" echo throughout the complex. Our next shot is at 2:35 a.m. with Thorwald entering his apartment, suitcase in hand, drenched by the storm and, perhaps, his guilt. But then, he immediately leaves again. Jeff again sees Thorwald return, but finally succumbs to sleep, as we are then treated to another shot of Thorwald now exiting his apartment with a woman. Who is this woman? Mrs. Thorwald alive and well? A ruse Thorwald is using to cover up his crime? Either way, this shot creates tension in us, as Jeffries hasn't seen what we now have. This scene creates an inner conflict as we debate whether or not Thorwald has committed an unspeakable act. Jeffries is now on the case as he discusses it with Stella, psychoanalyzing Thorwald's actions as he watches the couple's dog dig up a particular corner of the flower bed. Fearing being seen, Jeff backs up to use his binoculars from the shadows and ultimately pulls out his camera to take a closer look at the goings-on in the apartment across the way. He then sees what prompts him to consider this is more than just a salesman leaving his wife. A saw and a butcher knife. Something is terribly wrong, and it's not just Jeff's rejection of his doting girlfriend. As Jeffries lays out his case, Lisa grows more and more concerned, not with the possibility of murder, but with the possibility of madness in her beloved boyfriend, until she spots something that sparks her curiosity. She's been pulled in and dives headfirst into this case, perhaps breaking Jeff's preconceived notions of her fragility. Not to be left behind is Stella, a woman who is insightful, shrewd, and perceptive, suggesting that the body must have been cut up in the bathtub to be able to wash away the blood, and correctly noting Thorwald needed to get rid of the trunk before it started to leak. Not only that, but Stella puts herself in harm's way by rushing to try and get crucial information to further their investigation. In comes Doyle, our naive detective who doesn't want to be disturbed during his time off, but decides to at least humor his friend. He finds convincing evidence that there's no foul play, but Jeff refuses to believe it. Nevertheless, all of the evidence we have seen now points to just an ordinary night with some unusual but not criminal activity. Jeffries is not deterred. He senses there's more to this story than meets the eye as his eyes continue to scan the open windows of his unsuspecting neighbors. It seems as though Thorwald is getting ready to make a hasty exit, and Jeffries is determined to stop him from getting away with murder. Lisa comes over, and this is the first time we have seen Jeffries smitten with her presence, as she is fully invested in the curious case unfolding before them. Again, we are provided more information that leads us to believe all is well, other than a marriage breaking up. But, just as we are beginning to calm our nerves and accept the benign resolution, we hear another cry. And find out the dog has been killed, which reignites the detective fire within them as they see one person who didn't bother to look. A solitary flame of a cigarette lights the otherwise pitch-black living room of Lars Thorwald. The dog must have been digging in the wrong places. With the help of a simple letter and a cryptic phone call, they lure Thorwald out, giving us dangerous and intense games of cat and mouse as Lisa gets caught in Thorwald's apartment, just narrowly escaping her own death, and then one in Jeff's apartment as Thorwald pays him a visit, confesses to the murder, and nearly commits another as he pushes Jeff out of the window. We are then given another tour of the courtyard, this time alone, as Jeffries is content with solving the murder, content with Lisa, and content with life. We often turn to entertainment to help us escape our lives. It's easy to turn on the tube and drift off into a world better than ours, the rom-com where, despite all obstacles, the couple ends up together, and they live happily ever after. The secret agent thwarts the villain, who typically speaks with a British accent or is from a nondescript Eastern European country, and prevents them from fulfilling their plan. Or the sci-fi film that shows us heroes with otherworldly powers taking on the existential threat and saving all of mankind. There are some movies, however, that come along and take a journey inward and make a commentary on our state as a society rather than pull us out of it. With Rear Window, the master of suspense takes us deep within ourselves and shines a light on a few themes that have become more and more relevant today than ever before. Jeffries is stuck at home and going mad as he is confined to just the courtyard and his imagination, allowing his eyes to roam about and make entire stories about his neighbors he has never really met. He is living vicariously through them. Does this remind us of anything? Although the COVID pandemic exacerbated our isolation and forced us into physical confinement, that trend has been heading in that direction anyway, with the help of social media websites. Sites like these have created a pandemic of dissatisfaction with life as a whole. We have become obsessed with presenting a very manicured version of ourselves, posting only what we deem as gram-worthy. Because of this, we are constantly faced with the perfect lives of others that our own lives pale in comparison to. Studies have shown a correlation between social media use and depressive symptoms, poor sleep, low self-esteem, and poor body image. Instead of going out and experiencing life, we now view it through a small screen with a like count at the bottom. showing us in real time just how great the event was, and we miss out on actually experiencing it, effectively isolating ourselves emotionally and mentally, even when we are surrounded by others. When we aren't looking at the lives of our friends and acquaintances through our digital windows, we and millions of others are viewing the real lives of complete strangers. Reality TV has become a multi-million-dollar industry with 74 shows on the docket for June of 2022 alone. In these shows, we follow along while millionaires live their ordinary lives. We feel connected to them and view them as our friends. We may even know more about their lives than the lives of many others we actually meet face to face. This ability to tune in and find out so much about prominent figures of pop culture tends to lead us to morbid curiosity. Armin Meiwes was born on December 1st, 1961, and on March 9th, 2001, he met with 43-year-old Bernd Jürgen Armando Brandes, an engineer from Berlin. Brandes had answered an ad that was calling for a normally built person to be slaughtered and then consumed. The ad was posted on the now-defunct Cannibal Cafe forum. Armin stabbed him in the throat, hung the body on a meat hook, and proceeded to dismember and eat the corpse over the next 10 months, storing the body parts in his freezer. His encounter with Brandes was videotaped. Said tape has not been released to the public due to the gruesome nature of its contents. The details available to the public are repugnant and repulsive. Nevertheless, there have been references to and even homage paid to this case in at least 4 movies, 9 song lyrics or album titles, 11 television programs or episodes.
I thought this was a cookery course, but you were looking for someone who would agree to let you kill and eat them.
Yeah. You see?
That is funny.
Yeah.
And 3 plays. Some of these have even won awards and are lauded for their excellence. What is our fascination with the morbid? True crime podcasts are consistently among the top 5 every year. Series dedicated to serial killers, unsolved murders, and true crime stories in general are on the rise year after year. All of this is backed by scientific studies. Bridget Rubenking of the University of Central Florida and Annie Lang of Indiana University conducted an experiment in which 120 participants watched clips of 3 types of disgust: sociomoral, body product and death, and gore. They measured heart rate, skin moisture, facial expressions, and their memory after watching the clips. The research implied that once disgust is introduced in the picture, we become more attentive and remember the content better. Participants paid more attention to the clips the gorier they became. Eric Wilson posits in his book, Everyone Loves a Good Train Wreck, that our attraction to the macabre is, on some level, a desire to experience someone else's suffering. It's an exercise in empathy, allowing us to forge bonds that are essential for survival. In fact, a noble cause. An easy way to remember it is we all crave to scream, according to Michael Stevens. That is, strength, catharsis, reality, exploration, acceptance, and meaning. After watching something grotesque or disturbing, people feel the sense of accomplishment, stronger than before. Humans are curious by nature, but there's also a possible neurobiological aspect behind it. Norepinephrine and dopamine are released once a threat is perceived in order to be more alert. We seek that stimulus, and it's the release we are seeking. What's more, we tend to find uncertainty more unpleasant than unpleasant certainty. Schadenfreude also comes into play. We analyze the reality of the situation being watched, compare our own situation, and we derive joy from being in a comparatively better one. Rear Window is a brilliant study of morbid curiosity and a true masterpiece of cinema. It was added to the United States National Film Registry in the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. As such, it has inspired movies such as Disturbia and television episodes of Get Smart, a TV movie remake featuring Christopher Reeve, and even an episode of The Simpsons and The Flintstones. Its impact on society and its take on it resonate loud and clear in our day, and will continue to do so forever. As Stella put it, we've become a race of peeping Toms.
Oh no! That sinister-looking kid is coming to kill me! Help! Help! Help!
Thank you for watching. Have you seen this movie? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe and hit the notification bell. To stay up to date on all of our content, check out the links in the description.